Hey guys, what's going on? So today I'm just going to talk about some like basics of the business, right? So the number one thing that you need through your entire business, not just in the beginning, not just in the end, but the entire time, you need to have fun with your group, right? You need to foster like an atmosphere where they want to come in, a positive atmosphere, right? Because when they're at work and when they're living their day-to-day lives, a lot of negativity gets thrown at us, right? So by having that like positive refuge to come back to in the group, it creates that positive association in your mind, in their mind, and they want to be around the group more, right? Which is obviously going to lead to more activity on their part, more income on their part and your part, and just generally more success for everyone involved, right? So you can see why fostering that positive, enjoyable atmosphere and attitude is going to make your group so successful, right? Because that's the number one thing I've noticed. Traveling around to all my downlines and being around all their groups, the ones that are doing the most and being the most active have always got the most positive attitude and the most energy and enthusiasm when they're collective and when they're separate, right? So it's definitely one of the most important things that I've noted, right? Um, and when you are first shown the business, there's these people that are around us, right? So that I call them dream stealers. You probably call them friends at the moment. Nah, but so when you get shown the plan, when I got shown the plan, this is what happened to me. So I got shown the plan. I came back to my roommate's like flat, and there was like three of my friends there, right? And I basically told them I was excited, and I basically told them what had happened, right? And immediately they started trying to undermine what happened. They were just like, "What would they want with you? What? This is a scam. Why are you even listening to it?" And I started listening to them, to be completely honest. And then I realized if I came home with like the switched perspective of, "Oh, these people said I wasn't good enough at business and stuff," they would have been supporting me, right? And it's these are the dream stealers, right? These are the people that you think are your friends, because if it's switched, if you're doubting yourself, they want to bring you up. But if you're up, they want to bring you down, right? And that's where it can get confusing, right? And it brought me back to the quote of don't mistake loneliness for loyalty, right? Because a lonely person is going to want to hang out with you, right? Um, and you can't mistake that for loyalty. I've done it in the past, to be honest. But you just can't mistake that loneliness for loyalty, right? Because when you think someone's loyal, you treat them different, you trust them with certain things, right? But they're not necessarily loyal to you. They're just lonely, right? And so dream stealers kind of they hide in plain sight, right? Because they act, talk, and behave like friends. Okay, but the crucial difference is they never want you to be happier than they are, but they don't want you to be sadder than they are, right? So that's kind of how they blend in, right? So you can kind of test that, right? So you can make up something super positive, and if someone's supportive of you, they're probably a true friend, right? You need to test other attributes of them, but they're probably a true friend. And if you come back and you're really negative to that same person and they bring you up, then they're definitely a dream stealer, right? And you need to be aware of that person. And I'm not saying cut them off, but that is what I did, right? The other thing that kind of like rolls into that is situational awareness, right? If you're just going through life and you're just reacting to the things that go on, you're not really living, right? You're reacting. You're living a reactive life. You need to live a proactive life, right? And a big part of that comes from situational awareness and having a dream, right? I know that probably sounds a bit like arbitrary, but having a dream lets you act on situations and act on opportunities rather than react to situations, right? Having that dream, having somewhere like unique and independent that you want to go to, lets you think with your common sense, lets you think without the influence of like the group herd mentality, basically, right? Um, and when you do get to building the business, there's this thing called delayed gratification, right? So basically, you don't want to let the good things you have stop you from the great things you could have, right? So you commonly see this in like middle class households, right? So upper middle class, they'll usually, generation to generation, they'll usually stay the same, right? There's not, relatively speaking, there's not a whole lot of like change from the upper to the lower. Do you know what I mean? But this is because they're comfortable, basically, right? And comfort's a drug. So if you give someone comfort, an ambitious person comfort, they'll forget their ambitions, right? Because they have everything they think they need, they want, right? So they don't strive for more. They don't strive for a better lifestyle because they're comfortable, right? But when you look at the poor, the low middle class, the poverty people, they actually they go to the upper class very frequently, right? As a relative percentage, they go up a lot faster, because when you're poor and when you have no money is when you appreciate having money the most, right? And the lower class kind of have a very good innate grasp on what delayed gratification is, right? So it's basically not letting yourself feel the minor successes in life, so that you stay determined, you stay driven, you stay locked in to that greater goal that you're working towards, right? And so that's basically what delayed gratification is, right? So I'll talk a little bit about contacting, right? So basically, when you're contacting, there's an acronym called FLOM, right? So that's friendly, location, occupation, message, right? So friendly is obviously you want to come across as a friendly person, right? You want to have energy, you want to have enthusiasm, you want to smile a lot, but not too much because that can be creepy, right? And you want to maintain eye contact, and again, not too much because that can be creepy, right? But you want to balance it out, right? And then L in the FLOM is location, right? So are they from around this area? Where were they born originally? Where have they lived? Those types of questions, right? And then O, so now we're getting into like the business end of contacting, right? So O is occupation, right? So you're asking them about their job. And there's basically a few questions that you need to ask them. So what do they do for a living, right? Do they enjoy it? Do they make a lot of money? You ask these in friendly ways because they can be like confrontational questions. So you ask it in friendly ways. And then you get to M, which is your message, right? And you basically say, so say they were a plumber, right? Well, we're actually expanding a business in the area and we're looking for someone from a trade background. Would you be interested in making some extra money? And see how I said trade background? So you cater it to their profession, which you asked earlier, but you generalize it so it's not too targeted, right? So if I said we're looking for someone from a plumbing background, they'll just be like, do you mean like, do you want me to do plumbing? No, so you say trade background because it's more general. They feel like you're talking about them without feel like you're trying to get them, basically, right? And from there, you basically book the meeting, right? So if they keep asking questions, so they'll ask what it is, right? But if they keep asking questions after you reply, you basically want to shut the door a little bit on them, right? Or you want to ask them a question in return. So if they keep asking what it is after you've been like, oh, it's a product distribution business that my friend owns, right? If they keep asking questions after that, you can be like, those are great questions, but can I just ask what your marketing experience is like? Because as soon as they answer that question, they'll probably stop asking questions because they're afraid that you're now going to realize how underqualified they really are for the job that you're asking. Well, how underqualified they think they are for the job that you're offering, right? And if they keep asking questions, they're not going to be right for your business, right? Because they don't care that they're underqualified, and they just want to. They basically are looking for a reason to not do it and to say no to you, right? So if they keep asking questions after you've asked them that qualifying question, you can basically shut the door on them, but not like completely, right? So you can be like, listen, I'm really busy and I'm looking at a few other people for this position. If you're not interested, that's fine, man. There's no point in us wasting like each other's times by sitting down and me like explaining this to you, right? If they completely switch up and they're just like, no, let's sit down, I'm free, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? If they completely switch up, great, bring them into the business, right? If they don't switch up, then just like leave the door open for them. Be like, man, if anything changes, just give me a call. This is my number. But it was really nice to meet you. Have a good day. Just leave it like with the door open, because you basically never want to leave anything on a negative note, right? Because no one can ever do with more enemies, but we can always do with more friends, right? So by leaving the friendship door open, you're basically not creating an enemy, right? And you don't know who that person might become or who that person might know. So you just don't want to create enemies that you don't have all the like knowns on, basically, right? And then a few last things is whether you're at a meeting, contacting, or a follow-up on the phone, whatever, you never want to leave that meeting or hang up that phone call without having a follow-up set, right? So you never want to be like, oh, I'll call you back with a time when we can sit down again. Nah, you want to book it then and there for, I don't know, it doesn't matter when it is, it doesn't matter how far away it is. You want it close, but it doesn't really matter. As long as you have something in writing, something solid, you're fine to leave that meeting, right? And the last thing I'll talk about is fear, right? So most of us live our lives controlled by fear. From day one of being born, we kind of get this understanding that everything's finite, right? And at a certain point when we develop a sentience or consciousness or whatever, it's usually around like 4 or 5 or whatever, we start to learn fear, right? At first we're fine, we still got that positivity of when we were a child, but we start to learn fear from our parents, our worrying parents who aren't sure if they're going to be able to pay the next bill or whatever, right? We learn that fear and we make decisions. As we get older, we allow it to control us more and more. And we make decisions out of fear rather than having a dream, right? Having a dream that allows us to be driven by that dream rather than make decisions out of fear and react, right? And that is basically the core principle of what the business kind of rotates around, is not being driven by fear. Because we do unorthodox stuff, right? But you can't let the fear in, because as soon as the fear is in, it grows, right? You got to create that dream and you got to realize that you're on a different path from everyone else. So why would you do what everyone else is doing? That's all. Have a good night, guys.